Hi, it's Katrina from Wholesome Ireland. It is very unseasonably cold here in Dublin. I'm actually looking out on a very bright, kind of crisp, clear day, but for most of Ireland it's slight snow flurries. So for the next in my series of very fast and quick meals on a budget, I thought that today would be the ideal day to make a very, very quick noodle soup. Well, let's just call it pot noodle, I guess. So I want to show you how quick it is to make with ingredients that you're likely to have in your store cupboard. So to start off, in each of the cups I have a small amount of frozen sweet corn. I have a small amount of frozen peas. I have some very dead and limp looking spring onions. I have one peeled carrot. I have a cup of vermicelli rice noodles. They're dried. I have a jar of ginger and garlic paste. I have a bottle of dark soy sauce for seasoning. I have a Kilner jar. It doesn't have to be a Kilner jar. This just happens to be very, very handy when you're making a homemade pot noodle. I have a teaspoon, a fork, a very small chopping board, a small chopping knife, and a grater. So, over on the counter I have a kettle full of cold water. So start your stopwatches and let's see how we go. First things first, turn on the kettle. So you'll hear it beginning to buzz in the background when it starts to kick off. Next thing I want to do is I want to trim the spring onions. So I want to trim off all of this dead stuff, so I don't need any of that. And I'm just going to use my fingers to peel the kind of soggy, woody parts off of the spring onion that I don't want. Now, I'm not a chef, so my knife skills are absolutely brutal. So you're not going to see any flash knife techniques here. As a matter of fact, you're just going to see like blunt-edged knives and me getting frustrated with little papery, woody bits of spring onion, or scallion as we like to call them around here. Okay, so that's it, dead-headed. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to finely chop it. Well, not finely chopped, just slight chunks. This is going to go into the pot noodle at the end. It's not going to go in at the start. It can add a little bit of spice. Scallion or spring onion is quite spicy if it's fresh. The green part is actually spicier than the white part. Now you would have thought that the white part, which is the bulb, which is what goes into the ground, that would have been the spiciest part, but no, it's actually the green part. So that's that done. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up the spring onion. I'm going to pop it back into the cup, and I've taken out the peeled and topped and tailed carrot. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to grate it, and as you can hear in the background, you can hear my kettle boiling. That's a full 2 litre full kettle. Now it is a swift boil kettle, but it is not going to take long at all. So I'm just going to keep on grating this. This is a large grain grater. You can use fine grain if you want. I do like a little bit of texture in the carrot. This meal actually is vegetarian. If you wanted to add some meat to it, you could. Maybe if you had some leftover chicken from the night before, or some leftover pork, some mince, maybe a shredded omelette. Now I've got down to the end. I'm just going to pop that to one side. I don't really need it. I'll eat that as a treat later on maybe. So, as you can hear, the kettle is halfway to the boil. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a teaspoon of the ginger and garlic paste. It's quite fluid on the inside, so I'm just going to pop, that's about a teaspoon, so that goes into the bottom of the Kilner jar. Next, a dash of the soy sauce, just a splash. You'd add more afterwards for seasoning. Soy sauce is nice and salty. Then I'm going to add in the vermicelli noodles. It's nearly going to fill it all up. Now this is actually one adult's portion. When I pour the hot water on top, you can hear it's just about coming to the boil there. That's all going to slightly cram down a little bit. Next, the frozen sweet corn. Frozen peas. And I'm going to pop in a good amount of the grated carrot. So that's right up to the top of the Kona jar. So I don't know whether you heard that in the background, but the kettle has popped, so, or clicked, which tells me that it's fully boiled. So, and if you notice, I've left the scallion still in the cup, and also you probably noticed the light here is getting a little bit darker. You can see a dark cloud coming in off the Irish Sea. I'm maybe 200 metres from the sea, and actually as I look outside I can see it's starting to snow again. So I'm filling the jar up just to the line, just below kind of the rim. Next thing is I'm going to grab the fork, just going to give it a loose stir, just to make sure that everything is mixed in. Now it's quite hot, not overly hot, the jar is nice and thick, so I'm not going to scald myself on it. So the noodles are just beginning to soften. So the next thing I'm going to do is, I'm actually going to pop the fork down. You can see I'm making a wonderful mess. I'm going to pull the lid over. Now, with hot water, it does make steam, so if you're not careful with this, the jar could seal itself a little bit. So I'm only going to seal it loosely. You can see there's a spot there to let the steam off at the end. All I need to do now is I need to leave it for maybe 30 seconds. That's about it. So this is made in my own kitchen. If you can see my kitchen, it's absolutely teeny tiny. I'm working off of my table at the moment. Behind me I have a galley style kitchen. I've got a food mixer on the counter, I've got a kettle on the counter, I've got a hob on the counter, and I've also got my sink and draining board. The amount of preparation space I have is very, very minimal. I have 3 kids in the house today. It's a very, very cold day outside. If you're busy and you come home from work and you want something really, really fast and quick, you want to save yourself money, you don't want to call the takeaway, this is the thing to make for you. The cost of all the ingredients in this pot noodle come to, give or take, 50 cents for the entire lot that you're going to pop in. Your peas and your sweet corn come in the freezer, which is fantastic. You always have fresh peas and sweet corn in the freezer. You can get maybe a kilo bag of those for between €1 and €1.50 in the supermarket. Vermicelli noodles, you can get enough for 6 portions in the supermarket for, again, in between €1 and €1.50. And then the little extra bits and pieces, you'll pick them very, very cheaply indeed. So now that's soaked pretty much enough for me. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop in the chopped scallions or spring onions on top, give it a stir, and at this point, if you had any meat that you wanted to add in, you can, of course, you can add in, you can make this with a stock cube if you wanted to. I'm just not a big fan of salt in my food. Also, if you are vegetarian, you're probably not going to want to use a stock cube, and the idea of using minced ginger and garlic is fantastic. So there you go. You can see it's all become rather soupy, and that is it. That is my homemade pot noodle. Take a look at the time on this YouTube video and you'll see how quick it has taken me to make it. That is a full meal for one person. If you wanted to add protein to it, you could pop in maybe some cannellini beans, you could pop in some chickpeas. If you want to add meat proteins, as I said, you could chop in maybe an omelette, some leftover chicken, some ham, whatever you want. The fragrance of this is just fantastic. If you have a cold, the ginger, the garlic, the fresh vegetables, it's all full of antioxidants. It's very, very good for you. Gluten-free apart from the soy sauce. So if you do want to keep it gluten-free, don't put the soy sauce in. And enjoy. There you go. One homemade pot noodle in rapid quick time.